up, y'all? It's cousin Chet. Looking fresh. Hello. What's up? Got my Johnny Bravo. My kind of Johnny Bravo. A little bit of Patrick Mahomes going on.
Johnny Bravo.
Yeah.
That's a good. That's a good.
You know what I mean? Especially, look, I watched the one we did like 2 weeks ago, and when I said I had the Joe Biden hair, right? But I looked at a little bit of that one. It was way worse than Joe Biden hair. My hair looked like I was on flames, and like I just don't care about myself. So I went and got a haircut, got my hair did, and so look, I wanted. Part of what's going on is I want to grow it out, and
trying to even it out.
You got to get through those phases where hair is unruly. It just doesn't look good, and I've had like 2 weeks of just bad hair days. I was wearing the purple cap, no cap, to cover it up basically, and just let it grow. Excuse me. And so anyhow, I had taken it off, and we did that session the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, my hair look a mess. So I went and get it. So anyway, I go in, I talk to the barber, new lady, recommended by somebody I trust. I go in, see her, tell her what I want to do. She's like, well, I think you should do this and this and that and that. And I'm like, cool. Do it. I trust you. You sound legit. You sound like you know what you're talking about. You sound like the person I might let cut my hair for a little while. So anyway, we're chit-chatting.
Taking you to church.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I was just like, okay, she knows what she's doing. I like that, especially with my hair. But I think this goes with anything that if I'm looking for a product and I'm interacting with you as the person that may offer that product, I want to be able to tell you what I want, what my goal is, and then you tell me, and I might even say, this is how I think I'm going to get to this goal. But then you come back at me and you're like, whoa, I think for her, she's been cutting hair for 20 some odd years. So, she's like, well, from my experience, if this is what you want, this is your goal, this is what I suggest we do today. And that was basically just clean me up. Cut my dead ends, get it off my ears, get the gorilla hairs off the back of my neck type thing, and trim the beard. Because, the beard was kind of mountain manny. And so anyway. So
my beard grows like a mountain man that never hit puberty.
Yeah, you got like
I got
big
patches.
old patch.
It's all good on the Sahara.
Hey, don't it'll come. I think mine comes in so full because I shaved every day for 4 years when I was in the Navy. So get my hair done. Hair's done. She's like, do you want me to do the beard too? Usually I do my own beard because it's just what I do. Usually I do my own hair. I mean, like, that's another story. So she starts on the beard. And I mentioned that I have gone to a biker rodeo. If you've never been, so bikers, we're talking Harley rider biker types, right? They have it. Well, I don't know if they still do. They used to have an annual, what they called a rodeo in Chillicothe, Ohio. And it's just a big festival. Just think of any kind of festival. This one is for Harley riders. So what you're going to see is some Lollapalooza. You're going to see some like New Orleans beats for boobs type stuff. And it gets freaky at night. Like, I ain't going to lie. This is not a place for children. This is debauchery in mass. Like, this is, I mean, not everybody. Come on, there's some really respectable people, but it gets wild. So,
I take a point.
Thank you. So I mentioned this to her, and this lady gets excited, and she's like, "Oh my God, we used to go ever," because her late husband, excuse me. The reason why I mentioned this, she's got a Harley Mama coffee mug, right? And she gets all excited, and she does this side, and she does it right. She just, and then she gets to this side, and the next thing I know, that clipper comes all the way up here. And I saw it happen. She's midstream talking to me about how excited she is about this rodeo. And all of a sudden she realizes, oh shit, I fucked up his head, right? This is not a small nick that this lady You know what I mean? This is like a full clipper, freaking and a haircut that was done.
Dreams of biker rodeos and the ghost of Chet's
Bruh.
ghost of Chet's hair.
I'm just looking at her as her brain is trying to shift gears from this super excited story that is just authentic to how am I going to fucking explain this? You know, like I just fucked up. How am I going to fix it? Blah, 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 blah. So I save her. And I said something like, I think what just happened is, oops. I didn't say it just like that. But basically the gist was, is I let her off the hook by saying, I recognize what just happened. You just fucked up. And now we're going to fix it. Because it's got to be fixed. There's nothing you can, I can't just immediately grow the hair back. What if that was like a superpower that somebody had, just grow hair? Anyway, that was stupid. But anyway.
Like the X-Men's PR agent.
Right. How jealous would the wheelchair guy be about the guy that can just grow hair at any time? The bald guy would be so jealous of that guy. And why would you need such a... That's why I said it was stupid. So anyway, so then we come to... The real fact is my early suggestion was, you know, fade me up a little bit, like trim my sides and leave a little bit on top, clean me up, boom, boom, boom. She's like, nah, we're going to leave your sides. We're going to trim the edges. So when this happens, I'm like, I guess we're going with my idea now. But I said, I kind of let her do it. And she did this little Patrick Mahomes, like, you know, it's kind of like a new style for me anyway, because I am a bit of an old head. Like, just doing this part and fading this part, like me growing up, like if you were going to get a fade or a high top or a high and tight or a crew cut or whatever, you all the sides and the back, you know, you didn't leave the. To me, this can turn into a mullet real quick, and I don't want a mullet. No offense to any mullet wearers out there, I just don't think that I want a mullet. So, anyhow,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so that was fun. So you asked what I've been thinking about. That was one. I wanted to share that. For one, I wanted to brag about how good my hair looks.
I was going to say whatever she did suits you.
Compared to the other day, yeah, she did me right. I give her a tip and everything. Like she apologized and all that jazz. And you know what? I walked out happy, feeling like, you know what? Not looking too shabby there. And
I started growing my hair out. I don't think it is changing the subject, but it's just ironic to me. I started growing my hair out because I figured gives me something to do because forces me to figure out how to manage my hair so it doesn't get in my way, so I can like do work and keep it out of the way. And I also just hate going to barbershops. Like, I hate going and getting my hair done. I don't know why. Just ever since I was a kid. Like, I hate somebody grabbing on my head and, like, shearing it and clipping it. It just... Something about it always made me feel like a dog. It's like, I don't need anybody to groom me.
Right.
Which, to some degree, is irrational, but it's like... I don't know. It seems irrational to me, like... the degree to which... Like, people who, like, go all out on their shoes. People that will drop $300...
Thousands of dollars.
Like, it doesn't compute for me.
I've dropped $300 on a pair of shoes before.
Yeah, it's just odd.
But they were very specific shoes. This wasn't, I went to Foot Locker and I thought, ooh, look at that shoe, it's cool. This was, I went to Al Bundy. He was a shoe salesman. I went to Al Bundy. Isn't that him? Yeah, not Ted Bundy. Al Bundy. The fake character played by that terrific actor that also plays on Modern Family. Anyhow, so I go to a real shoe store with the real shoe guy, and because as you get older, you realize, oh, it's not all about being cool. I need to like be comfortable and take care of myself, and so you start getting pains. You start waking up with like, damn, why's my hip hurt, or why's my knee hurt, or you know.
I mean, that's a little different.
So I go see this guy because I have my ankles pronate, I think, which means they kind of roll in a little bit, just a tiny bit. It makes me like partially flat footed. This is for the CIA. So this is for your information bank on me. Now you know. I'm just kidding. It's in my military files. Yeah. So anyway,
you ain't running for it.
It just shows I'm not scared of the CIA. They already got all my information anyway. I'm just kidding.
I'll run.
They're coming to get me. They're coming to. So anyhow, so I want to get something to kind of correct that. You know what I mean? To help that.
Yeah.
At that time I'm working a job. I'm on my feet. I'm on my feet a lot. At that time I was doing a little bit of running because I got 2 pair of shoes that day. I think I misspoke when I said 300 because I spent like $450 that day on the 2 pair of shoes. Now the one. Anyway, that's not a topic I really want to get into.
Yeah,
Neither are the haircuts, but I am going to use the haircut as a segue. So Native Americans, and I think other people around the world, understand that or appreciate hair as to be like it's like an antenna, right? There's energy, you know what I mean? This is where like 80% of our heat. So we're getting rid of a lot of our energy through the top of our head anyway. But did I say this last week?
I don't think so.
Okay. So like in the Hebrew traditions, they had Nazarites, right? These were people that were Nazarenes. Not maybe that's the correct way to say it.
I think so.
And so a hair was a big part of that. And it was basically they weren't allowed to cut their hair until a Nazarene was set aside.
There was a specific tradition to it of you would let your hair grow for the entire year, and then on a certain date you would chop your hair off and you would offer that as an offering.
It could be whatever the period of time is. Like Samson was a Nazarene.
Mm-hmm.
He was born a Nazarene, and that's why when Delilah cuts his hair off, he loses all his power because he was supposed to keep his hair throughout his life. And other ones, it could be, from my understanding, you could become a Nat. And my understanding is this isn't like the priest comes in, the rabbi comes to you and says you need to set aside some time. This is like you and God comes to you and says you are set aside. For whatever the sorry?
Absalom was another Nazarene from the Old Testament.
Tell me about him.
Absalom is a very interesting Bible story. So, he's David's first oldest son. King
David's
David.
First oldest son.
Yep. Before
Why would you say first and oldest instead of just saying the first son?
Because Solomon ends up being the carrier of David's legacy. Solomon is the child David has with Bathsheba.
David's
Absalom, legitimate son.
His legitimate son.
Yeah, the one he didn't.
Was he his first son, or was he his second
before
first
Solomon.
son? He is born before Solomon.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Solomon's the wedlock kid.
Got you.
Absalom,
the wedlock kid.
Mm-hmm. Well, Absalom is David's legitimate firstborn heir. Well, the first story of Absalom, there's a couple parts. Part 1, Absalom has a sister. I think her name's like Tamar or something. Anyways, he has a sister. And one of their cousins has got a massive hard-on for this girl. Like it goes to lengths to explain he couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat, he couldn't think. He just was absolutely smitten with this girl. Couldn't stop thinking about her. So this cousin devises a plot to rape her. So he sets up all these grapes, gets him and Tamar alone.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I forgot we're not allowed to say that word, so we have to say grapes.
Yeah. So, anyways, he's in this room.
It took me a minute to catch up with what you were doing there. That was nice.
It's just
Good
him.
job.
It was just him and Tamar. Big bowl of grapes in the middle of the room.
Right.
Right before they have dinner, Tamar begs him, says, "Look, just marry me. Like, just ask David. Just ask my dad. Like, he's not going to say no." He was like, "We can get married. Just please don't dishonor me. Don't ruin me by sullying my honor with this." And a cousin says, "Nothing at all. He just starts eating those grapes."
Right.
Well, Absalom, as soon as it's over, it goes so far as to explain once all the grapes have been eaten, Tamar is the one begging. She's again begging him to marry her. But this cousin just has nothing but contempt for her. He's disgusted by her. So he throws her out into the street, like probably butt-ass naked. Like, just, it's that kind of thing. He just immediately throws her out the front door, and she spends the rest of her life living in a monastery, like out in some temple reserve, because she's been so shamed. Absalom finds out about this, murks that guy.
Right.
Completely goes around the law, like completely bends the law. It's not his place. He's not the judge. He's not the jury, and he's not supposed to be the executioner. But he's not having this.
Sure.
So he murks this guy.
Right on.
Kills him. Takes off as a fugitive because he's just broken the law. David basically gets wind of all of this and smooths the whole situation over. He smooths the whole situation over, brings Absalom back. Absalom asks his dad for forgiveness. "Sorry I went around your back. Sorry I went over your head with this." And David's basically got a reaction of, "Dude, you're my son. That was fucked up.
Right.
You're fine." That's part one of Absalom.
Part one.
Yeah. Part two of Absalom's story. So there's all this corruption popping up in Israel right now. And basically, David is the judge. He's the man.
Right.
He's the guy. So anytime somebody has a legal or a dispute, they go to David. Like, he is the Supreme Court. There's too much bullshit. There's too much shit going on. David can't judge everybody's case. He can't keep up with it. So Absalom recognizes this and decides that he's going to just go out and start weighing cases. He's just going to go out and start making judgments. He's completely gone renegade. Like, there's no formal process here. It's just Absalom made up his mind. And he does such a good job of organizing and structuring. He basically he's so good at just handling people's problems, like solving these cases. He starts just building infrastructure in the whole, like out in the countryside, like away from Jerusalem. He starts building infrastructure. People are down, like people are ride or die for Absalom. And it explains that past a certain point, more people in Israel were loyal to Absalom than they were to David. People are so much more favorable of Absalom that at some point most Israelis make up their minds that we would rather have Absalom as king than David. So Absalom basically starts an invasion. He starts a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
Absalom starts a civil war. David and his guys catch wind of this. And Absalom's got such numbers. He's got such a following accrued that they just straight like leave Jerusalem. They just take off and make camp somewhere on the other side of the Euphrates or something. But this is revolution. This is war.
Mm-hmm.
And Absalom is the revolution. Anyway, so some Lord of the Rings-esque Middle-earth shenanigans, some battles get fought, things go back and forth. And there's this one interesting part of the story where Absalom's generals are sitting around and they're discussing what's our next plan, like what's our next move. And somebody in the council goes, look, why don't we just do this like men? We have bigger numbers, we have a leader that we believe in. Let's just meet him out in open field, open battle. And the other generals turn around to this guy and go, are you fucking stupid? He's like, have you seen like the crew David rolls with? Do you know anything about David's like special forces?
Right.
Basically, like they basically describe David's men like berserkers.
Okay.
He's like, it's literally the way they describe them. They say when they come out into open battle, he's like, David's men, like, they become like wild animals.
Yeah.
Like they just transform into these animals. They're like, if we just meet them out in open battle, they're just gonna 300 our asses.
Right.
They're like, we got to be sneaky. We got to be smart about this. So I say that, and meanwhile, while all of this is going down, it's describing what David's going through while all of this is taking place. And there's this scene where David just doesn't even wanna. He's like, dude, even if I win this war, he's struck with this thought of, even if I win, my son's gonna be dead. So David's like got this conflict that he's going through the whole time of, well, these are the people that have had my back for my entire life. Like, this is my crew. These people believe in me. These people depend on me. I have to do right by these people. But he's torn, like his heart's not really in it, because on the other end of serving his people, his son's head on a pike.
Yeah.
So David's all fucked up and conflicted about this. And as they're his men eventually sit him down and they're like, dude, you gotta snap out of it. You gotta sack up and start like trying to win this thing, because we're dependent on you. So they finally kind of pull him out of his funk, and he's like, all right, it's time to go to war. So as they're traveling, this priest is like following right behind David's caravan, and he's following David, and he's just shitting on David the whole time. He's like, what, you think it's a coincidence? You think it's just a tragic circumstance that like this is happening? You've been corrupt. Your guys have basically defended Israel from the Philistines and the Canaanites, and you pretty much carved out the territory and the map, and then you and your thugs have basically just been sitting on the top of the pile. And like it's not, obviously I'm paraphrasing a lot, but in essence, that's what's getting communicated. And David's generals turn around to him and they ask him, dude, you want us to just, like, tear this guy apart? Like, you want us to just kill this guy? This guy's annoying. And David is like, you know what? He probably has a point. And you know what? If he's wrong, we'll find out, because it's in God's hands. If I've judged wrong, if I've acted poorly, then I expect to lose this fight, and that's all there is to it. But leave the priest alone.
Okay.
As they go and meet the opposing army, Absalom's forces, David gives his generals strict commands. He's like, if any of you finds my son, if any of you, like, finds Absalom on the battlefield, you do not kill him, you bring him back. You capture him and you bring him back, but bring my son to me alive. Well, David's army ends up winning this battle, and Absalom takes off. He hops on his horse and he rides away. And it's so, the imagery of this scene in particular is so unique. Like, I could talk about it for a long time, but the gist is Absalom takes off and he's a Nazarene. So he's got this long hair,
right,
that he grows out every year. And as he's riding through this forest to try and lose the trail of David's berserker thugs chasing after him. So he's riding through, and a branch snags his hair, and he gets lifted off his horse. And the way it describes it is, and by his hair he hung from the tree, suspended between heaven and earth. And he's just stuck there. David's men come up, find Absalom hanging there by his hair. Like, David's right-hand man. Like, they find him. The younger recruits, the younger soldiers come back, report to David's right-hand man, and they say, we found Absalom. He's alive. They're like, we should take him back to David, right? And David's right-hand man's response is, he picks up 3 spears, funk, 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 and then everybody loses their minds and tears Absalom apart from the inside out.
So what made him... So I missed something in the transition of when he decides to become a Nazarene. Like, so this, he basically, like, during this war decides that he's going to be a Nazarene. It's almost like he was trying to use the Nazarene traditions to protect himself or something. And the karmic response of him getting caught by his hair.
Well, you're familiar with the term archetypes, right?
Yes.
Samson is a Herculean archetype.
Sure.
He's the Israeli strongman.
Oh, we still have it. We love the strongman.
Yeah. He's Superman. He's unbreakable.
Right.
There's an archetype there.
Sure.
The warrior, the strong man.
Yeah.
Absalom is another literary archetype, mythological archetype, called the Hanged Man. Now, you might have seen that before.
It's funny because he is a hanged man in the end.
This is actually something that would be useful to be able to show now, but
you're fired.
The Hanged Man, the typical depiction of the Hanged Man in an artistic way. So, like, I'm thinking of, like, tarot cards.
Okay.
Tarot cards are essentially like old mythological archetypes.
Yeah.
That got enshrined and encoded into this sort of playing deck format in the medieval ages. But the images themselves are as old as ancient Egypt.
Okay.
Like, you'll find instances of the Hanged Man or the Grim Reaper, death. You'll find archetypes of spring and bounty and resurrection. anyway, there's this strange connection between all of the Nazarenes in the Old Testament. They all seem like they're particularly associated with these express archetypes. David's kind of the archetypal king figure, but I mean, like, it's more esoteric than just, the Lion King, the warrior, the wizard. Like, those are all archetypes. But the archetypes associated with the Nazarenes, to me, they seem much more esoteric. They're dense. They're dense themes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Samson. That's a heavy story.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is because the Nazarenes are kind of that example of God qualifies those he calls. You're qualified by the call. You're not qualified, and then God says, "Oh, you're a good one. You're going to lead my people." No, He says, "I'm picking you," and He doesn't do it based on human.
There's something,
but he doesn't do it in a way that humans like usually agree with. If you think about it, like all the prophets, a lot of these people that are set aside by God, they're not popular in their own time and place. You know, most people ignored the prophets and just looked at them like they were loons. You know what I mean? They're just like, he doesn't know any time. He's had too much to drink in the desert. You know what I mean? And so people just wrote him off. And I think, that's what to me is that dense, that deepness of the Nazarenes, is that they are called by God. Samson's born into it. Samson's basically his, God tells his mother he is set aside. She tells him, I guess, most of his life, you're set aside. And then,
it's very idiosyncratic.
There's another, because women could be Nazarenes too, I'm pretty sure. And a lot of times that would be in mourning. A person could be called to be a Nazarene in mourning. It's basically like, for them, it's like a fast, right? I'm not going to cut my hair. I'm not going to be around dead bodies. I can't remember there's some, like, looking through at the different stories, there's some pretty, like, there's some rules. Like, you're not allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that type thing. But
it reminds me of something the most famous Nazarene said.
Who's the most famous Nazarene?
Jesus.
Okay.
It reminds me of something I read.
But see, is he a Nazarene or a Nazarite? Because he's from Nazareth, right? And Nazareth has that name, but is Jesus, like,
I'm kind of a school of thought. I don't think Nazareth actually existed as a town. As to the best of my knowledge, which is scant.
Doesn't it exist today?
Nazareth? There's probably a Nazareth, but to the best of my understanding, there's no indication or actual records of a town Nazareth existing prior to the 1st century in Israel.
Where are you getting your information?
Ralph Ellis.
Okay, fair enough.
A guy who's studied this a lot more thoroughly than I have.
Well, me too.
So I'm.
So anyway, yeah. So we're gonna take it. Okay, so
but I'm saying,
potentially Nazareth isn't a real city.
Anyways, I think.
Is Christiansburg a real city?
Either way, I think. Anyway, humor me, okay? So yes, let's associate.
And I am going to go off of the foundation that Nazareth may not be a real city.
Let's assume it's not a coincidence for a second. Let's assume it's not a coincidence that Jesus is always depicted with this super long, flowy hair, and
that's white people, though.
He comes
because he looks like white people of the Middle Ages. Sorry.
Granted.
I'm what did you ask me to do? You said humor you, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But well, again, to your point, it's like you were saying something a minute ago about how people don't want to have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't want to be moved.
Yeah.
Like, they want to keep things the status quo. And the Nazarene tradition breaks that. It's idiosyncratic, where you're taking it upon yourself to change the way you do things because you individually have a very express purpose.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something that Jesus says. He says, it's a little bit of a paraphrase, but he says, look, I came to you people and I gave you a comedy and nobody laughed. I came and performed a tragedy for you. Nobody cried. And he says, John the Baptist comes to you and everybody says, he doesn't drink, he doesn't celebrate, he just hangs out by himself in the desert. He must be insane. And then I come to you and tell you all the same things John's trying to tell you, and you say, oh, look, he's just a drinker. He hangs out with the bums and the whores, and he hangs out, he drinks at parties. He's just a drunkard. He's like, so which is it? He was like, do you hate what we're saying because John's clearly he's clearly a crazy introverted weirdo? Or do you hate what we're saying because I'm too much of a partier? He's like, you people just want to bitch. You people
Who's saying this?
Jesus.
Okay.
He's saying,
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, he's saying, you people just want to complain. You just want to complain because that keeps things the same. You just don't want anything to change. Like, you don't want to be moved.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel anything. You just want things to stay even-keeled. And it's like, that seems like the Nazarene tradition.
Well, I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to ask, how can I get this to Good Citizen so that he can look something up? Can I?
Let's see here.
Boop. I'm getting caught up on something. I don't know what yet. All right. So one thing though, that I just realized is that what did you say? Allow?
Allow.
Let there be light. So one thing, I'm pretty sure that the Nazarenes could not touch grapes. I'm pretty sure they weren't allowed anything from the vine. And so when you said that, and I'm like, wait a minute, Jesus turned water into wine. Technically, he didn't touch the vine, but, you bringing up the fact that people are looking at him like he drinks, and maybe they just, because he's associated with others that drink, but that doesn't mean necessarily he is. There's also the touching of the dead body. See, to me, Jesus isn't, look, is he set apart by God? In my opinion, yes. If that's the highest qualification for a Nazarene, then obviously he's a Nazarene, right? If there are these other rules like not touching dead bodies, now, granted, Jesus is a rebel and he breaks the rules and he says, basically, when you're one with God, those rules don't apply. The church doesn't like that because then the common person intellectualizes and rationalizes that into, that means I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do and I don't have to follow no rules.
I always saw that
but
when you get the point of the ritual itself is moot.
Sure.
I always
but again, he's on a higher level than the common folk that need to do the ritual because I don't know, they're too stupid, they're not evolved, whatever. And I shouldn't have said stupid, but they're just not at that level to
Well,
where
he
they
says
can receive.
he says to the disciples, he's like, "You guys barely understand the stuff we discuss in private." He was like, "How do you expect me to communicate that
To them,
Yeah.
no doubt, right?
He's like, "I have to give them the story."
That's one of my favorite parts of the whole story is the fact that the disciples never understand Jesus. They don't get it. So they write it down and they tell other people shit they don't get, and then 100 years later it gets written down and everybody goes, "That's the word of God." And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. It's nowhere near. It's the story about the word. Maybe. Anyway, so back to the Nazarenes and back to the hair and back to the spirituality, the spiritual energy, right? And there are other traditions around the world where hair is grown in a religious spiritual context, right? I think of one of my favorite religions, and I'll probably say this multiple times throughout my podcasts, is the Sikh religion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their there's 5 things that you can recognize. I feel like I'm having deja vu, or I've already said all this on a podcast once.
I don't think so.
Fair enough. They grow their hair. They're the ones that wear the turbans, right? People often mistake them for Islamic. But what's in that turban is really long hair because they've grown it since
childhood.
Yeah. And that's I think they carry a knife or a sword. Back in the day, it was a sword. They have a bracelet, that's 2. The long hair, that's 3. A comb, I'm pretty sure, is one thing that they have to have, because I guess if a religion's going to dictate that you have to grow your hair, it's and you got to take care of it too. So you need a comb.
Yeah.
So you got a comb, a knife, the bracelet, which is the shield. There's a 5th thing.
The turban?
No, I don't think the turban's required.
I always heard that it was, you have to have your sword, you have to have your turban.
I'm looking for 2 things, good citizen. Let me know when you're ready. You're ready? One, let's go with the first one, which is, what are the 5 things that every Sikh has? A knife.
S-I-H-K.
Yeah, S-I-H-K. A knife, the shield, the hair, the comb. Is it their pants? No.
I think it's their weapon.
That's the knife. Or sword.
Oh, yeah. You said that.
This intermission is brought to you by water. H2O. That's 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 oxygen, combined into this delicious and refreshing substance that you can drink. So good. Cleans you inside and out. Highly recommended. If you haven't drank...
Support your local water farmers.
What? Water farmer?
Yeah.
How about just
you heard it here
quit throwing your shit in the water? Yeah. We need it to stay clean.
Yeah. You don't want to trust big water.
You don't trust big water.
Yeah.
S-I-H-K.
The 5 required items for a Sikh.
Brought to you by water. And I'm not talking about that stuff you buy in a bottle. No, but if that's what you got to do to drink water. That's all I want to say. Drink water. But be careful. Did you know you can die from drinking too much water? You can actually poison yourself with water. So that's the disclaimer. Be careful. All right, the 5 Hannah Sikhs. Sikhs generally have Singh as their last name. The cash, uncut hair, usually kept covered by dastar, also known as the turban, the steel bracelet, the dagger, cotton undergarment.
And a small wooden comb.
The cotton undergarment. So basically they have to wear underwear? I need to know more. What is that? What is even that? So anyway, yeah, anyway, I don't want to get like too distracted from that because I really am back on the and good citizen. Let's I want to look up Nazarenes, and I want to look up first of all, what does the interweb say about Jesus being a Nazarene? Mm-hmm. I'm just curious because I want to argue with you, and I hope the internet says that I'm right. But really, the other thing I want to know is what are the requirements? I'm pretty sure they can't cut their hair,
no touching dead bodies,
and no touching dead body, and I think no grapes. And while we're doing that, I also want to come back to the grape thing. I'm going to go ahead and say rape. I thought about that, and it's a funny little thing, and it's kind of part of our culture now that we adjust and we self-censor.
But if we're going to talk about it,
I think, because I was listening, and I'm glad that I got to listen to you. Probably like you listened to me last week, which I haven't published yet, but I will. But anyway, it almost like makes it, well, he had his fill of grapes. And it Disneyfies it in such a way that it takes away the reason why
it does more damage.
The word rape triggers people, because if you have been raped, and I know a lot of people have had such a bad experience, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's traumatic. Therefore, I feel like it's doing it a disservice to reference it in euphemisms or metaphors of grapes. Okay.
I agree.
And I think that if you use the real word, there's a reason we use words, is because the words have meanings, and they connote a meaning. Okay. And so I think we've always been about free speech, and so I was also thinking that I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to self-censoring like that. I don't want us to do that. If we're going to talk about
this channel,
especially a Bible story, like this is straight from the Bible. Like, come on, man. If we can't tell the story how the story is, you're probably watching the wrong podcast in the first place. And I'm not Disney. Probably will never be sponsored by Disney. I don't even want to sponsor Disney. Like the original guy with Mickey and all them, but this current corporate fucking thing, this propaganda machine. Anyway, so now Jesus was a Nazarene, but he was not a Nazarite. The two terms are often confused for one another. The term Nazarene refers to someone who lived in the town of Nazareth, while a Nazarite is someone such as Samson or John the Baptist, who took a special vow before God and subsequently consecrated to God for service. Number 6 details the requirement for being a Nazarite, which includes abstaining from wine, keeping one's hair unshaved, staying away from dead bodies. After the time of the vow was fulfilled, the Nazarite had to present sacrifices and cut his hair. It says his, but I still think that the women could do it too. Offering this as a sacrifice as well. From this information, it is clear Jesus was not a Nazarite. Jesus could not have been a Nazarite since he did drink wine, as recorded in the Gospels. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, he turned water into wine. It's kind of. But my thing is this. It goes back to Jesus is above that. There's no doubt in my mind Jesus is selected and separated by God for God's purpose, and I think he rises like to say he's just I think that a Nazarite, like Jesus is way up here and a Nazarite's here, as far as like if we want to talk about like a tier of spirituality, and at the SS level we have Jesus and the Buddha, Muhammad, and then in the S tier, I don't know, we've got Gandhi or somebody.
Well, at any rate, I have a very idiosyncratic, kind of repertoire of sources that I'm usually cycling through off the top
Where is
of my
that
head,
source right here? My apologies. This is from, this is just Got Questions?
Mm-hmm. But no,
Who are they?
A reputable.
Are they right?
Christian site.
Reputable Christian site. Fair enough. I mean,
anyways, but the point is not to
That's
split
what the
hairs.
interwebs-
The point is not to split hairs over the etymology.
He
but
said
like,
split hairs. That's funny. That's funnier than you realize. And if you're not laughing, you should like and subscribe.
Trust me, I know a thing or two about splitting hairs. But
so let me wrap. Let me kind of, because you're right. This isn't about splitting hairs about whether or not Jesus is. Because I think really one of the things is like I'm talking about this spiritual energy and this, like these other dimensions of the religious spiritual world and how we interact with them and how like there's a physics maybe we don't understand or that we're not aware of, that we're not able to empirically observe, you're way out of screen right now. I was trying to screw over a little bit. And about 20 minutes ago, I was going to make a say. No, I'm just kidding. Because one of the things I wanted to mention in this kind of spiritual realm, and I was going to use the hair to kind of transition to, the other day I got in my car and I smelled my dad. My dad's he passed away right before the COVID situation, so he's not been around. He's not been in this car. And, I made like a Facebook post, and to me, it's a spiritual situation, right? It's like, my dad has been around. You know what I mean? Now, we can say
sense of smells the most closely associated sense with your memory bank.
Really? Right on. Now, it could be that I just do similar things to my dad, and so therefore my car smells like his. You know what I mean? That's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. But nonetheless, it triggered a memory of my father, and it made me think about him, and I made the post, and somebody's like, yeah, he's been around a lot in the last couple weeks. So somebody else has been feeling his presence, so to speak. Other people are like, don't you love when they visit us, or something to that effect, so there are other people. And I guess, just in, how do you feel about things like that? Because, and I guess my second question is that a ghost?
There's a guy I know. There's a guy I know who, his daughter died. His oldest kid, his son, is like in his 30s. And he's so debilitatingly autistic that, like, they had to have him committed because he'll do shit like pull teeth out of his head when he gets upset. Big boy, too.
Right.
And so that was their oldest son. And just last year, their daughter, their only daughter, they only got these two kids, their daughter dies in a freak medical accident. She goes in for a basic gallbladder surgery. Something fucks up and she dies. And she was having dreams for 2 or 3 weeks leading up to this, saying she felt like something bad was going to happen. Like, she kept getting these dreams like, I feel like something bad's going to happen to me. Like, I feel like I might even die soon. And it was like, I guess she was having this to such a degree that by the time she was in between surgeries, she was like, kind of came to terms with it by then. By the time they were looking at her saying, yeah, we got to do this emergency surgery or it's going to go bad. Like, she was like prepared for it. Like, I knew something was going to happen. And she dies in the very next surgery. So he buries his daughter last year. He and his wife. They bury their daughter. And then their family dog that they've had ever since, probably since their daughter was a teenager, gets a heat stroke and dies like months after the funeral. And he shared something with a buddy of mine. He said after all this stuff happened, I can't think of two more wholesome people off the top of my head than this couple. Even after all that went down, like we were visiting them, and they were just the most fatherly and motherly, just gave you their full attention, like invite you into their house, like, are you hungry? We can make you some food, like just hang out with you. Just wholesome people. And that guy that guy was telling a buddy of mine, he was like, for some reason I always thought of like the Cardinals. For some reason I like seeing a cardinal always made me think of my daughter, and he said this is the only time this has ever happened to me. But he says after like the worst 2 years, he says he goes out on his back porch. And it was like the first cardinal of the spring that he saw. He says this cardinal's like sitting on the porch, and he's like, I'm just out there kind of watching the trees and listening to the wind. He says this cardinal comes and flies right in my face. It just kind of lingers there. He just flaps right there and just kind of looks at me for a minute. And she just took off. He's like, I was like making eye contact with this cardinal.
Right.
He was like, and this guy was saying that's when he knew, like, that's when he started to have some peace. Because as far as he's concerned, that was his daughter visiting him, like letting him know, hey, it's springtime again.
Yeah. I would be hard pressed not to consider it as such. That'd be a pretty amazing experience, really, to have any bird, like, just come like in your face, floating right there for half a second as you just, one up with it. You know what I mean? It's just you and it. Yeah, I would definitely think that that would be intense. That would. And here's my other thing: if the intuition is saying, "Oh, this is my daughter," it's not this other person. It's not my mom. It's not my grandma. You know what I mean? Then.
Well, in a Jungian way, like, it's a synchronicity.
Okay.
So in a Jungian sense, like, it doesn't matter if it's coincidence or not.
I agree.
Like, it's resonating with you because it's something that is tailor fitted for your soul.
Yeah.
It's like a moment. It's like it's like if you lose a hand. It's like your body doesn't stop assuming that it has a hand on this arm. So if you lose it, you get an amputation, at some point you're going to feel that leg itch.
I've heard of phantom pains and phantom feelings.
You're gonna get that urge to grab your knuckles and pop them. You're gonna feel like sore tension in it, and you're gonna want to move it, and then you're gonna look down and, oh, that's right. Like, I think those are ghosts in a very similar way. It's like,
I mean, I think of yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, and we're kind of, this is, where it's a mincing of ideas and words.
Yeah, like if I'm trying to bridge the super secular rationalist side of my brain and the sort of mystical spiritual side.
That's what I would like to, it's definitely a mystical, like in the sense that this is spiritual. This is not empirical, right?
Well, it's like those moments, that smell, that bird, like those like 3 guitar chords on a song that you might have listened to with your sister or your dad or your mom before they died.
Mm.
Like those little things, they're as much a part of your soul as that hand was a part of your body. And it's like losing it doesn't change what you are, like internally. And it's like, yeah, so to answer your first question, like I do believe in that. I do believe there's something. And it's like, frankly, if it's a coincidence and it's just like, oh, Dad liked wintergreen Axe body spray the same as I do, and I just never thought about it until I smelled my dad one day. Whether it's that, whether the Cardinal just was like having a bug out moment and didn't know what he was looking at and took it, almost doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it does.
But it's like there is something to do there with the Nazarenes, I think, because like when I look at the Nazarenes, it's like, first of all, yeah, they all have long flowy hair, like they all got
like, long hair. That's what they do. They grow their hair.
They got that.
Apparently, they're not allowed to cut it.
But the other thing that the two other things that all the Nazarenes I can think of have in common is, for one, their lives are defined by tragedy. Whether it's the end of their life or what, like they all have very unhappy endings.
That's something I said last week about how sometimes being called by God does not mean like you get to poop in golden toilets. A lot of times being called by God is not like most people's, this is how I want to be a millionaire. You know, like that's not what that life is.
A disruption of reality rarely feels pleasant.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good way to say it. Especially for me, puny brain. I've got a puny brain, and when the God want to fill it up, it just explode.
It's like that leads me to the second thing that the Nazarenes all seem to have in common with each other is their life ends in tragedy, and they don't care. They know what they stand for. They have a purpose. They have a cause. And again, like hair splitting or not, like I'm thinking of Jesus when I'm thinking of this too.
I'm good with you. I understand that is your,
like there are these parallels.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's something very particular, I think, that to take away from the Nazarite tradition, which is
say that again. There's something
to take away from this Nazarite mentality, like this ghost of that is the Nazarenes, or the Nazarites, like this mentality, this sort of worldview. It has something to do with willpower. Like Samson keeps his hair long, reminds him it's something about his hair reminds him what he's truly capable of. Something about Absalom's hair reminds him of the image that he has. It reminds him of, that's the impression I get, is it reminds him of what people are seeing when they look at him. The same way David's kind of struggling with, I have all these expectations, all these people are looking to me to fix all this. Something like that, I think, is occurring with Absalom. And it's like when I think about that and I look at Jesus, it's like there's something similar there. Like there's something similar in this rootedness in, you know what, yeah, I have traditions, I have rituals I follow, I have patterns to my behavior, but they're mine. It's not a collective, it's mine. Like I have my cross to bear.
Right.
Like this is my journey. And it's like as long as I'm authentically and honestly looking at that in the mirror, your rules don't apply.
Mm-hmm.
Your rules don't apply to me because I know what I am.
Yeah.
I know what I'm about. This is why I'm here. And it's like, on the one hand, I sympathize with people who go to church and it's like it's all stuffy and it's all these people with their own little like niche cultures, and these little honky tonk attitudes about things. And I, on the one hand, I'm sympathetic to people who get one whiff of that and they're like, why did I even come here?
Yeah.
What is there waiting for me in this place? But on the other hand, it's like, on the other hand, for me, it's like there's a reason. There's a very rational, if subconscious reason why people to this day continue to seek out these little fellowships or these little communities of people that center around, we get together, we talk about the Bible.
Yeah, and you said why with the first two words you used to describe it, which is fellowship and community.
Yeah.
That's a big reason.